What's up? Iron sharpening iron universe. What's going on? This is the We Be Jammin live with your new host, Pharaoh Keys. I'm gonna just give you a little background on me. I am the son of Big Jack, and I thank him for letting me have this opportunity to be able to do this. Now, I'm not gonna be before you long because I want to bring up my guest, my good friend, Mr. Aristotle Jones. He's from West Virginia. He's an artist who's been blazing the trails for young artists like us, like me, and black artists all around West Virginia. So I wanted him to be my first guest because it's going to be an amazing talk as he gets to tell you about how he integrated all these things that come from West Virginia's history into his music. So, without further ado, let's bring up Mr. Aristotle Jones.
What's up?
What's going on, man?
Hey, I'm happy to be here. Get to hang out with you again. I love it when we're on stage together, so we get a different kind of jam session tonight, right?
Yeah, we got a different kind of vibe going on this time, man. And we've had these kinds of talks before, so this is just gonna be like sitting at the bar waiting for our turn to get on stage.
That's right.
Oh, so just want to say hey to my aunt Nisi that popped up in the chat. Hey, Aunt Nisi, you gonna
Hey, Aunt
see a
Nisi.
lot of you gonna see a lot of my family pop in.
I'm
Because
glad. Hey,
that's who
the
they
more
are.
family, the better. Well, thank you for letting me hang out with the fam.
Oh yeah, man. Of course, you family too, bro. You family too. Uh, so let's just talk about you real quick, and then we'll play some of your music, and then we'll just keep chatting. So why don't you tell the people who is Aristotle Jones?
Well, first of all, I want to say congratulations on this new gig, this new opportunity for you. I'm glad people can see this side of your personality. I'm glad you get a new platform to showcase not only like your music, but music from other artists that you feel are interesting. I think that's a great thing, and you deserve it, man. And I look forward to watching and seeing where you go from this, man. I think it's great.
Appreciate you, brother.
But who is the Appalachian? Who is Aristotle Jones, or who is the Appalachian Soul Man? Are they one and the
Well,
same?
yeah. Are they one in the same? Who is Aristotle? Who is the Appalachian Soul Man?
Well, man, like, I'm Aristotle Jones. We'll start. I mean, that was just a young man who had a dream, and from a very young age, I knew I wanted to entertain. I was curious. I grew up in West Virginia, so it was rural, and I grew up on the side of town that wasn't considered even the hood. So I grew up on the edge of Huntington in like a small part of town called Guyandotte, and even outside of that, it was like there was a flood wall, and then there was like my house. So we was way out there, and we had to catch the bus early, like 5 in the morning, to get to school. And for a lot of years, man, I might be the only black person in the school, or my family would be like the only black family in the school. So like my West Virginia experience, I think when I was younger, was a lot of learning how to pay attention, because there's a lot of survival. I grew up in the 80s and 90s. I went to, I graduated high school in 1998. I'm in my 40s now. So, like at that time, it was before the internet, and things were a little bit different, and people thought about the world a little bit differently. And so, getting by, people didn't always know where everybody was. So, you had to learn how to be independent, and you had to learn how to navigate situations that weren't necessarily going to be supportive of you if you didn't know how to talk to folks. So I became outgoing, and and that through that I also found myself in a lot of situations where people would tell me stories about themselves, or I would have to tell them a story about myself to lighten the mood. And from there, when I got to high school and they integrated the high schools, I definitely had much more backup in the things that I was thinking, because I wasn't part of such a small minority. I was kind of allowed to be in a space, but still they tried to fit me in or fit everybody into just one category, which is like black, and that was being defined by the majority of the folks at the school, because there still was only maybe like 10 or 15%. It wasn't like a huge number of minorities at the school. So, like growing up in West Virginia, a lot of it was kind of trying to find where I fit in, both within kind of like the narrative of West Virginia, like where does me as a young black man fit in the story when I didn't have any black teachers, or I didn't have any a lot of black role models even on the section aside of town I was on. And then two, within the greater scope of like American blackness that I see on TV, which nobody I knew in West Virginia was actually fitting that narrative. It was
Yeah.
just wasn't happening. You know what I mean? Like it was like we was all country, whether or not we wanted to admit it or not.
Yep.
And so like a lot of that, what shaped me was when I would go to my grandfather's and my grandmother's farm during the summer, and my granddad was a coal miner and a farmer. So he would get up at 4 in the morning and do coal mining until about 2 or 3 in the afternoon, get off, and then do farming until dark. And I would be there either weeding the garden or watering or helping them, work with the cows or the chickens or the pigs. And I was riding horses and doing all this very, very, very rural America stuff. And that didn't even make sense to my friends back home, because even though they were in like West Virginia in this rural area, they didn't have that countryside of life. But
Yeah.
also my granddad was a gospel singer, and he would always tell me about when he was younger and when the mines were thriving and there was more black folks in West Virginia, because folks had come up from Alabama to work in the coal mines, and just like he did and my great grandparents did. And he would talk about the times when they would have these gospel quartets and these quartet unions, and they would get together these vocal harmony groups would get together, and they would sing these gospel songs. And he told me about how that I should dress my band and the type of music. And even though he was working so hard as like a coal miner and a farmer, his first love, and he wanted to be musician. And so like I would watch him and kind of understand what it meant to be like a dutiful man within the context of also having a passion. But he chose to raise his family, not to pursue music, even though he had musical opportunities. He always said he when he was young, he wished that he prayed that he would have a house big enough that he could bring his whole family together in, because they were split up when he was younger. So his passions led him to provide in that manner. Where like myself, as I got older and discovered that I kind of had that same music bug, mine really spoke to the creation part of it, and making sure like that the things and experiences that I was going through had an outlet. That's how I started to feel connected to like the environment and the people around me. Now, searching for a scene to have an outlet for music in West Virginia is my first band. When I came out, I had an 8-piece funk band, and I was playing music that was kind of like I was looking at Tito Jackson and Johnny Guitar Watson and Frankie Beverly and Mays and
Yeah. Yeah.
Earth, Wind and Fire and Parliament, and I had my parents' record collection, and it was on vinyl before people started actually digging through vinyl. I just found it, and I found a turntable, and I started listening to all this music, and all of a sudden I had I saw a lot of black bands, and I was listening to the music of a lot of black bands, which ultimately I was hearing the music from them and samples and the music and the contemporary music that was coming out. And but then I heard the whole songs, and I had a acoustic guitar that I kind of learned how to play some music on, real kind of rough. And then I got my first electric guitar, which was like a Epiphone Les Paul model that somebody gave me for like $75. And I started getting into that kick, and then learning the funk guitar riffs. And
Yeah. Yeah.
from there, like that really kind of like spurred on what I wanted, because I knew I'd heard all these sounds environmentally in the black community, in my section of my black family, and the way that in Appalachia, like in the households, but outside the households, in the streets, I'd only heard like bluegrass and folk and country music, and and those were like the free things. And when I grew up, like Garth Brooks was like big, and he was coming through like West Virginia, and the Judds and Reba McEntire was that kind of NASCAR country wave. So I'd hear that on the radio, and on the radio they actually had these disclaimers: no rap, no heavy metal. We're only going to play whatever kind of music what was left. It's funny now that it's nothing like that anyway. Even country music's got
Yeah. It's all this. It's all mixed together now. So He does.
So I mean, like Aristotle Jones was just like a, or is just like a very curious person who is rooted in family and place and culture, who is someone who seeks to not only understand but create a vocabulary for experiences that maybe are a little bit not mainstream, but not because they wouldn't be mainstream, but more so because it's a smaller slice of the pie. And I think whenever folks like you and I and other musicians in West Virginia, and especially minority musicians in West Virginia, are making authentic music that speaks to our souls, we kind of have to initially admit that, man, maybe there isn't too many people out here that understand all of our experiences. And so what I've been able to do from there, kind of having that rooted nature in my family and my place and my, and kind of like hearing some of these backgrounds and spaces that I wasn't getting environmentally through just kind of my own personal, I won't say research, but curiosity. I learned about some of the older legacy artists that had roots in the hills and hollers, and learned a lot of folks that went on to like LA or went on to like St. Louis or Philadelphia or New York, or they also had roots in rural communities. They came off of farms and fields, and they ended up making it once they got to the bigger cities.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so a lot of times the bigger cities got credit for the creativity that was being founded on the porches and for people that were like me, that were making music that was natural to my soul that nobody around here got, that I was seeing, because either they were learning about music from after hearing it go through like the television and the machine and getting it broadcast back to them, so that our contribution was like removed from it by the time we got it back, or from a bunch of people that didn't really want it in the first place, and I was trying to get them to understand, like on the bluegrass scene or the rock scene or the jam scene, that all of their music was rooted in like literally the music I was making, but it
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
for them. They didn't get the perspective of it. And so I had a hard time finding like a center and a being. And then my granddad, before he passed away about 6 years ago, he'd already kind of started to slip in his mind a little bit. And he had seen me struggling and seen me going out and doing the gigs and going to these honky tonks and going to these little bars and dives and taking any gig I can get and just trying to push forward. And after a while, and his mind even started to loosen up a little bit. But one day he looked at me with a bunch of lucidity and he goes, Aristotle, you know what you're doing. You should just be yourself. And like that was like one of the first people, even including everybody in my family, who had seen like what I was trying to do and got it. Like it wasn't like, oh, why don't you try something else? Why don't you be a teacher? Why don't you? Oh man, we're just so worried that the path that you're choosing is going to be so hard. But because he had gone down the road of being a coal miner and being a farmer and on the spare time singing and raising a family and creating a house and being the only black man in like this area surrounded by farms in this rural county, he had made it through and he saw what I was trying to do. And when he said that, it just clicked in my brain, like, okay, cool. Like what I'm doing is right. Somebody sees it.
Yeah.
And it was probably about a month before he passed away, I released West Virginia Hills, which is a remake of one of our state songs, and I did it in a style of a doo-wop and soul and blues. I kind of included these more art, these genres that I can accepted a lot more and connected a lot more with, and remade this song in that manner. And I released that song, and I remember playing it for him, and when he was in the hospital, and we got to sing that, and he just smiled and he goes, "Oh, the West Virginia Hills," and he was singing it. He had a stroke, but he connected to my voice and singing it. And I wrote a press release to send out, because I was all gung ho. I was like, man, I'm going now, man. I got me a
Yeah.
song. I got in a studio. I got like 20 gigs. I'm gonna go out and I'm going to go and be a musician. And granddad says I can do it, and I can do it. And so I take this press release into the radio station, and the DJ reads down and says, Appalachian Soul Man, Aristotle Jones. And then he stops. And he goes, do people really call you that? Appalachian Soul Man? I said, well, they do now.
They
And
do now.
no, and I didn't actually mean for it to be like it's taking it on as a title when I first said it. It was a job. Like I'm a soul man, a soul singer. Like I'm a soul man. Da, 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 right? And I'm from Appalachia, so to me, I'm an Appalachian and a soul man. But because of the way,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I've been singing Appalachian soul music for a long time, and no one really got it. But as soon as I said I'm the Appalachian soul man, all of a sudden that was like the first push on the domino that where people started to get what I was doing, because
yeah,
that was enough of a translation. And so then, unfortunately, my grandfather passed away. I turned 40, and I went down to Atlanta. I'm a big Atlanta Falcons fan, so I go down to watch a game for my birthday. And the day after I turned 40, I get the phone call that my grandfather had passed away, and he had been sick. So I understood that was part of the thing. It could have happened any time. And so that was kind of a heavy thing. But I also knew they say your ancestors are with you, and you get a gust of wind behind your sails. And he had been so motivated, a motivating factor. And we had been so close because we had lived together for about 3 years, where I had a chance to be a caretaker, and he got a chance to be a mentor and share some of the stuff he had learned about music and about life with me. Once he passed away, I understood, and was able to move forward. But then I had all these shows that were booked, and I was ready to pretty much pull up roots and like leave everything behind. I was gonna quit my job and go. And on March 19th, about the second day of my tour, that's when the pandemic, or March 14th, whatever. Oh, 14 days to stop the spread meant all of my gigs were canceled.
yeah,
And which was one of the biggest unforeseen blessings that that has ever happened in my life. It was one of those things where I would probably be out there still trying to get the engine going if if that wouldn't have happened, because then I had a year of I would equate it to like boot camp. I was so mentally fixed already after I got over the devastation of not having it. I said, well, what do you do? I said, well, man, you get ready for when it opens up and it's going to be a land grab. There's nobody else. If you can get ahead of the curve, then you can get really, really far out there and maybe make up some ground for lost time. So I just I
yeah,
started mapping everything out, and I wrote what I wanted, and I wrote where I was wanted to go, and I would look for ways to make connections, and I worked out religiously every day. And I would, whenever we were able to go out, I went into the studio and I started finishing, and I would sit in the studio. I had like parts of the album, my album Mountain Dew Up in the Streets of Osage. I had parts of it done, but I didn't have it all done, and I couldn't get any musicians. People wouldn't come out, so I would go down to the studio, and somebody would cancel on me, and I would just like, what can I do? And I would just like do whatever I could get done to get it done. And the engineer Tommy Bailey, who drums with another band in West Virginia called Fletcher's Grove, and Megan Jean's Secret Family, he was the engineer, and we were over at the studio, and he's just up there just like, man, I don't know what this guy's doing, you know what I mean? Like, he just comes over here and he keeps giving me money, and he says like he's going to work on this album. And every time he would talk to me, I'm like, man, this is going to be something. I got to get this done. I know that this is going to get me somewhere. And eventually I got towards the end of it, and I was able to get the material done, and I put it out. And since I was here in this place called well, actually, that I put out an album called Appalachian Soul Man, which was going to come out the year before. So I put that out, and then I had, while I was finishing up my Mountain Dew Up in the Streets of Osage. But what had happened was, because I had spent so much time in Osage, West Virginia, which is a town that where my grandfather met my grandmother, where my dad and mom lived when I was a tiny little baby, where my great grandparents met, and where like I just had so much family history in like this maybe 2 square mile um tract of land, and there was nobody around during the pandemic to interrupt. It was just me and the birds and a couple older folks that still living around that we would check in on each other from time to time. I just was able to write songs in a manner that were where my imagination was free, and I chose to write the songs that told the story of my family's history. However, not directly, but more so in the styles of music that would have been in the air during different decades when things happened. And so I really thought about what was going on and are these interpersonal relationships. And I write love songs kind of on the base, on the surface, but I write about people, place, and purpose. So it's kind of like I write about your connection of love could be through like your connection romantically or through your family. Your love could be for like a place and like a community. It could be connected between you and your higher power, and ultimately it gets reflected down to the love between you and yourself, which then creates like a pyramid. And so I was writing these songs from that perspective, and going through the mourning process of losing my grandfather, and being absolutely alone during a pandemic and wanting my music career to take off and figure that out. And I poured all of this energy into these songs and going to the studio that once I was able to release that second album, Mountain Dew Up in the Streets Osage, the following year after things were open, that's when things like getting nationally recognized for the National Association of Black Storytellers comes about, and getting the experience grant for doing a storyteller show to trace my family lineage from southwestern Virginia all the way up through the coal fields up into northeastern Ohio, as they've went from coal miners to working in the industrial factories.
Yeah.
And now even leads to like moments like just recently where I was just won my second national award through the United States Artist Fellowship, where this is allowing me to basically at this point, as a somebody at 46 years old who has been trying to make music for over 20 years, now to get recognized on a national level for simply just telling my family's story and making music about my family and being black in West Virginia, and talking about soul music and rock and roll music, and how the music of the coal miners and the music of like the folks that traveled through our region has influenced American music throughout the 20th century. All of a sudden, now instead of like me looking for a place um within West Virginia. Now I'm out here on like saying is like not what you think. It's like amazing stuff, and like I am kind of like a face of the state in a way where I never would have ever anticipated like anybody being thinking about West Virginia and soul music, or Appalachian soul music, or the cultural creative pioneers, other than like maybe the so quote unquote hillbillies and hicks from the sticks. Now we can stand up and celebrate the folks and the pioneers that um that just maybe nobody ever knew about, and so it's kind of a wide open space. But the music I get to make, I try to make music that gives folks that lived experience of like juke joints and that southern soul music and that mountain soul music that was a bit blended because of the nature of the people. So the Appalachian Soul Man is somebody who Aristotle, while Aristotle Jones has all that curiosity, the Appalachian Soul Man is more of the personification of in the continuing legacy of all that history and all of that those musicians and creative contributors. It's like, hey, well, here's an entry level or a portal for you to discover a wealth of American history that maybe got glossed over in your textbooks. But I tell you what, once you find out, you're going to love it.
And that's so true, and that's such a great intro of yourself, man. A great story of you because
I just
uh
jabbered on, man.
but you definitely carry on a legacy that most people don't know that West Virginia has, especially in soul music, soul, funk, rock and roll stuff. Like
Yeah,
West Virginia used to be and it still is in a
it
way,
is.
but it used to be a hub where uh and there's quotes out there that said if you can play in West Virginia and you do well, you can play anywhere, and that's something that we carry along as we play uh, music and stuff. Now, there was a couple questions that came up, and you answered one, which was where you're from. Uh,
Mhm.
but once you give them a little geographical lesson on where Osage actually is.
Oh yeah. So if you go to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and you go along the Monongahela River south, so that's actually upstream from Pittsburgh. Um, you end up right at the tip of Morgantown, West Virginia. So there's like the Mason Dixon line, and then you cross the river, and then like that's where Osage is. So it's like the last exit in West Virginia before you cross over into Pennsylvania. And that would be there's like kind of like a tri-state area. So there's Maryland, which is about an hour to the east. Pennsylvania, like Pittsburgh, is probably about an hour north. And then if you go about 2 hours to the west, or 2.5 hours, you're going to end up in Columbus, so right around that area. And so it's about 3 hours. DC is about 3 hours away from here too. So we tour with my band in about a 3 to 4 hour radius. So that's kind of like where we go. We'll go up to Erie, Pennsylvania, to Cleveland, Ohio. Those are both about 3 hours away. Harrisburg, Pennsylvania is about 3 hours away. Huntington, West Virginia is about 3 hours to the south. And then so we try to stay busy in that radius there.
That's what's up. Uh, Now the other question was, where can we hear your music? And we're gonna play
Yeah.
couple songs from Aristotle. But where if people want to go find you right now, where can they hear you at?
Well, of course, we're on all the streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music. But if you want to find out and see really cool videos all in one place, go to aristotlejones.com. We got tons of videos, links to all the music. It's real easy to kind of start there and then figure out where you want to go beyond that. Like if you have your own favorite like streaming platforms, please put me on your playlist. If you like a song, I write what's really cool about like my music, like I have some fun songs that are just like bops and ditties that you can just jam out to, but also I like to tell stories. So I have a couple storyteller collection songs that are about different towns that have either asked me to write songs about them or places I just found are really interesting, and I wanted to kind of capture a story. So if you like slower stuff and that you can listen to and like hear a message, or if you like more upbeat stuff, there's something for everybody.
Yeah, and that is very true. And I've had the pleasure of both listening to you play and playing in your band, and there's a piece for everybody. And someone in the crowd is going to find something they can hang on to and be like, man, I really like this guy.
I like
So
to write songs. I think I've always liked to write songs. When I was younger, I used to listen to Boys to Men and Silk and Shy and Jodeci, and I loved the layered stacked vocals and the harmonies, and how you would get to the end of the song, you just have vocals swirling everywhere, and then it'd be really tight. But man, a lot of that too was just doo-wop and R&B and soul music just packaged into modern, like with a little bit of tempo. And so now I try to bring that too. And once I kind of discovered how you could do that with live instruments, that's where a lot of my music kind of gets rooted at. It's still R&B, rhythm and blues, but sometimes I might add a little bit of that rock edge. Sometimes I might add a little bit of that soul edge, but I also like to add in that country and that folk, just so that you can see the authenticity of where I come from. So I hope everybody enjoys what they hear.
yeah, and I'm sure they will. Let's go ahead and play something real quick.
This was good. This one's got some go-go in it.
What you think about that? Oh, yeah. What you think about that? What you think about that? Oh, yeah. What you think about that? Say, I'm gonna give you what you want. What you think about that? And I'm gonna give you what you need. What you think about that? No, you won't have to ask for nothing. What you think about that? Say satisfaction guaranteed. What you think about that? What you think about that? know it's good. What you think about that? Oh, yeah. What you think about that? What you think about that? Oh, yeah. What you think about that? What you think about that? Oh, yeah. What you think about that? So I think we should get our groove on. If you are down to bust a move, cause I think that I know the two-step. And you look like you know it too. What you think about that? What you think about that? Yeah, I know it's good. What you think about that? Oh, yeah. What you think about that? Say, hey, now get down. How's that sound? 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 What you think about that? Well, I know it's good. What you think about that? Oh, yeah. What you think about that? What you think about that? Well, I know it's good. What you think about that? Oh, yeah. What you think about that?
All right.
Yeah.
Think about that.
What'd you think
Yeah.
about that? That was
Hey,
a fun
man.
one, man. I really I had a good time coming up with the concept for that. That I went, believe it or not, I went off and I'd done a showcase, a talent showcase, like trying to get gigs, and it's kind of like a meat market where you show up and everybody's performing, and then they're like, "Oh, do I like you?" You know what I mean? I don't know. And I got up there and I had my show together, but what I realized when I saw everybody else playing, they were just a bunch of cover bands playing songs that everybody else knew and liked, and nothing
Yep.
wrong with that. But I had come up there with this original material, doing Appalachian soul, trying to ready to sell my shtick. And once I left, I looked around and I said, "Man, this is just not the place for me at all." So I come home, and that was up in Albany, New York. So I come home, and then we didn't book any gigs, and I was bummed out for a second. I thought to myself, man, I can give them exactly what they want. They want some bump. And I was like, well, screw that. I'm going to make something even cooler. And I was like, what you think about that? And as soon as that lick came in my head, I knew I had a song, and I wrote the whole song out in my head. And I was like, oh, man, now I got to go record this. And so
Yeah.
I called my buddy Bo McMillian up, and he was playing keys. And I said, why don't you come up and help me do a song? And we just played the whole day and kind of came up with that lick. And what I wanted to do with it sonically, and I wanted to combine a couple of my loves very early in listening to music. One was like when I grew up, my cousins moved to Washington D.C. area, and they would always come home and to meet at my grandparents' house, and they would bring tapes, and it would be go-go music, and like it would be awesome. And we listened to, like, the Chuck Brown band, and we listened to all this amazing, and it'd just be taped off the radio. And so, like, I was like, man, I'm just fascinated with this. And we were down in Charleston. Here, hold on there real quick. We were we were down in Charleston for a event, and we got to open up for the Chuck Brown band this last year. And so what happened was we I came back, and I was so inspired that I was just like, I'm gonna write this song, release this song, and get it out there. And so what you think about that just kind of blends a lot of the early gospel work songs I'd been listening to with the go-go sounds I grew up with listening to the 80s, because I realized, like, a lot of folks in West Virginia had that same experience and grew up listening and hearing this music, to the point where I'm at Multifest last summer and the whole place was jamming. And you was down there, you was playing with us when we opened up for the Chuck Brown band. Wasn't it an amazing night, man, seeing all that go-go music right in downtown Charleston, West Virginia? and I realized that it was part of the West Virginia experience for a lot of black folks growing up here was like this sound, and so I wanted to include that in some of my music, and then I wanted to blend that with a little bit of early black gospel music, and I wanted to write it using words that I heard people just say real colloquially at like gas stations and stuff like that. So like, what you think about that? And like, I'm gonna give you what you want. Oh yeah, groove, and all that stuff. So it's just a real fun song to play and record.
Somehow we had some technical difficulties. I don't know where Pharaoh
Oh
Keys
no.
went, so, but he's still going to pop in. So we're listening to the story. So being from and for everybody, hello everybody. This is Big Jack Story Time. So we're always in the back watching, and I'm having a wonderful time listening to you, Aristotle. So
Thanks,
let's
thanks.
keep it going. And even with the your puppy there, so we some of even the question said, well, you got to show the fur baby. So
Oh yeah, he's
yeah,
down here. Like, oh, he loves it. When I get excited, he's always chiming in. So, I'll show you a picture of him here in a bit once he calms down a little bit.
It's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. So I know you mentioned several times, and I appreciate you telling us about the history of West Virginia. And now you're throwing go-go in there, coming from the DMV, Washington D.C. area. So
Yeah.
that go-go is how we
I got
grew
my,
up.
my people's in Rockville, Maryland. So we would go there and hang out, and then I got some people down there. Was it Silver Spring?
Right.
In yeah, all of that, man. So that was part of where folks left when they left out of West Virginia. The next generation, they would either go to like Ohio into like Dayton in that area, or they ended up in DC. And so I got family kind of spread all over this region of the Mid Atlantic.
Which is good though, because sometimes wherever you go, you'll know at least you got family there. Somebody's
That's
gonna be
right.
there
That's
supporting
right.
you. Yeah, so that's a good thing. And I see Pharaoh's back. I ain't want to hog. I know sometimes we have to jump in, and you wouldn't have known that he fell off the screen. So, I was going to throw one thing out there as you was talking, and I watched the video, which is awesome. I like the song. So how did you get your band together? How did your band come together? If you can explain that for me? And I don't want to take anything else from you, Pharaoh. I'm gonna fall off the screen, but just tell us, how did you put your band together?
Well, this lineup that I've had, we've been playing for about 3 or 4 years after the pandemic. Like I was telling Pharaoh, it was good to be going soon because I got kind of a good choice musicians in the area. And unfortunately, like being in a smaller town, a lot of times you don't get to play with people. You got to find them wherever you can find them. So as I was traveling and I meet somebody that was cool and got what I was doing, I would say, all right, come along. And so I had a vision for a big band, but I needed to find the right people that could pull it off because you need to know a lot of different genres. So our horn section is called the world famous Appalachian Horn Dogs. And the saxophone player, he's actually a producer. So we go into a studio and he's the one that tracks all of our music out now. And we try to, and it's been great. So like the Horn Dogs, the name, why they have a name is like when you have a soul band, all of the good soul bands like coming from like Stax Records and Motown, their horn sections always had a name. And so as soon as I came up, I was like, man, my horn section's got to have a name too. And so we created a whole little mascot for them. And there's a mythology about the world famous Appalachian Horn Dogs. Like if you hear them howling, then you know it's a sign of a good time. You got to go out and check them out, play them. But I really tried to rely on the types of sounds that I heard on those records. So, you have your piano and your guitars and your horns and your percussion. And I found some of the best players that I knew around that could come to do it. So you saw in that video, Megan Paulette. She's a wonderful singer and piano player out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You saw David Haley was on drums. He's been playing with me for about 10 years. Chris Volpini, he was playing bass there. He's out of the Wheeling area, and oh man, he's great he has a wonderful taste on the rhythm section. Then you had the three horn players. We had Philip Wilfong. He's out of Eleanor, West Virginia. We like to call him Philly Willie. You got CJ Wren, and then Drew Herder, and they're both of those guys were at all three of them were at WVU, West Virginia University, and so I met CJ Wren, the saxophone player, first, and then he had three buddies, and it was like this instant camaraderie that brought the energy to the band. And funny story is, I'm self-taught. I learned how to play by listening to records and figuring out songs with tab. And so to play with like a larger group so that we could all communicate, CJ had gone in and charted out all of my music on these lead sheets, like actual music written out for my songs. So he comes to practice and he has all of my music written out on like sheet music. And I'm just like, yo, what in the world is this, man? I can't even read this stuff. And so, like, since I've been playing with the band, I've definitely, it's great because what's nice about playing music is good game recognizes game, and the music is just a way to communicate the idea. But if you can communicate it, players want to play good music. And so since we've been playing together, they've been helping me, even at this point in my career, to learn how to utilize that tool of writing sheet music and distributing it out. So now when I tour around, I fall in the footsteps of like Ray Charles or Otis Redding. I might show up in a town and then find a horn section there instead of traveling with the guys in the band, just because that's the way you do it. And so you got to learn from the folks that was in the game beforehand. So Jaron sat in with me on keys many times. And I send you the music. I send you the sheets. I tell you to know it when you get there, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And he does.
I'll be flying out of take my pants sometimes, but it's always fun.
Oh, it's good. So hopefully you get to show what we're playing out again. But putting together a band, it's been a journey for me to find the right players. But I tell you what, man, it's been fun, and you only get better when you play with people that are better than you. And I've been able to find a lot of players that have allowed me the space to grow too.
And your band is solid. I mean, they are some players. You walk into the room with these cats, and it's the who's who. If they're on stage, they're gonna rock the house. It's always a good time.
I make a move, like our horn section. They dance, so that's almost a part of the show too, where like I'm doing my thing and I'm moving around and doing like the Chuck Berry moves and like doing the old school rock guys, and then you turn around and the horn section, they'll be doing their little moves and twirling and jumping up and down. And sometimes I'm looking at the audience. I'm like, yo, I'm over here, man. But it's a fun show. We do a lot of call and response. We try to the idea is to blow the roof off the venue. No matter what, it doesn't even matter if the venue doesn't have a roof. I want to get the energy in the room. I want to get everybody on the same page, and we're going to try to literally just blow the roof off the venue and get folks to forget whatever they came there with in their mind, and when they're leaving, they almost don't want to leave because they're having so much fun. Because they made friends. They feel safe in the space, and to me, I think back to those juke joints, the barn parties, the field parties, that part of growing up in rural communities where you might have to you got to hang out with who's there. You can't be snotty. You can't be uppity. If you ain't gonna get along with everybody, you're gonna be sitting at home by yourself. And so that's the vibe. I'm like, hey, we're here. We all came to have a good time, and I ain't never had a good time having a bad time. So come on, get down with me.
Get that. All right. Hey, look, I'm liking that right now, and I'm gonna jump off. I'm gonna get off. It was definitely cool hanging with you, Aristotle, in this brief moment. Pharaoh Keys. Before I pop out of here, we gotta pay our sponsors. Okay, we gotta get back to our sponsors. So let me pop this quick commercial, and I know you got a video queued up. So right after this, I'll be off the stage. Our commercial will come on, and we'll have Aristotle Jones come back, host it. We Be Jammin Live by Pharaoh Keys. So let me pop this up here. And
looking to elevate your everyday glam? Meet Pink Babe Cosmetics, where bold beauty meets conscious living. Pink Babe Cosmetics is a beauty and lifestyle brand delivering high-quality makeup and stylish merch made to last. Every product is 100% vegan and cruelty-free, created with care for you and the planet. From everyday wear to special moments, Pink Babe Cosmetics offers durable, long-lasting formulas you can trust. Beauty that looks good, feels good, and performs effortlessly. Unleash your confidence. Own your glow. Shop now at www.pinkbabecosmetics.com.
All right. All right. Pink Babe Cosmetics.
I
All
like
right.
that it
So
was vegan and cruelty free.
yeah, yeah. You know,
That's nice.
that's the only way to go now. You
I
know.
know. I mean, that made me feel like I'm in a good place to talk about Appalachian soul music.
Yeah, you sure are, man. Uh so I wanted to go and play a couple more songs, but I found one uh from I think it says 2019, but it is West Virginia Hills, which is it's the state song. Am I right?
Yeah, yeah, it's one of our West Virginia state songs. I think Country Roads is they adopted that as our official state song, but we have several other ones. And this one was originally written in 1885 by a woman from Glenville, West Virginia. And my version doesn't sound anything like the original version. So maybe one day there'll be a movement to like get mine in there too.
Yeah, I always say like this should be the official state song. Now,
It's fun.
the video I found has it has you in it. It's from Studio 3 here in Huntington. So that means that I'm going to be playing keys on it.
Yeah,
So,
that
you
was a
know,
good day, man. And Corduroy Brown, he was back before he was blowing up. He was working there, and he had set up this interview for us to come on there and perform. Yeah, and I just released a song, and I was so proud.
yeah. Yeah.
I still am.
And and like you said, like the chords, he sent me the song, he sent me what key it was, and he was like, "Yeah, just meet me down here whenever, and we go lay this down." So
The funny thing is, the guitar player in the video, he wasn't even there to play with us. He was there to do his own song, and I was like,
yeah,
"Hey, you're gonna play with us now." He goes, and I played it for him like right then.
yeah,
And then that's we were in the lobby. That's when I played it for him, and he was like, I don't know if I can do that. That's got some. I was like, you got it, man. Come on.
yeah. So I'm gonna pull that up. Here's West Virginia Hills.
So I was born in West Virginia, down by Huntington Way. In the summertime, on the banks of the Ohio River, that's where I play. So when my mama looked for me when those street lights came on, she looked down towards the water or up towards the sky. Here's why. Oh, the West Virginia hills, majestic in my brain, with the summer's bathing rain, I can pray for this land. Is there anyone to stay on my heart ran to business as the stand was full with my loved ones in those West Virginia hills? Over the hills, over the hills, beautiful hills, over the hills, over the hills, oh, those West Virginia hills. It was so I'm wrong, still I put my hand on you. Stay with my love. West Virginia hills. Oh, the West Virginia hills, how my childhood days passed, and I made lots of memories that my whole lifetime lasts. The art was bright, guided by another skin, as a stand was full with my love. Virginia hills, over the hills, over the hills, beautiful hills, over the hills, over the hills, oh, those West Virginia hills. People say I won't, said I pick my hand on you. There's a stain with my love. Those West Virginia
Yeah, that's the West Virginia Hills. Like I said, that should be our state song.
Oh man, that was fun. Got to give a shout out to my one of my good friends, Tammy Carter. She was doing the backup singing there too. That was a lot of fun. And honestly, like now, looking back on how, man, dude, you remember that old keyboard?
Yeah,
You've upgraded your gear.
yeah, but it's a little bit lighter now. Yeah, a little
Yeah.
bit lighter.
Oh man, I tell you what, like that was a great time, and now since then, West Virginia Hills is really taking on a life of its own. I do a radio show. I work for my day job is at West Virginia Radio Corporation or WVRC Media, and so I started off as just being the creative director. So I would write commercials and then produce commercials. The thing that everybody just loves to listen to in the radio is all the commercials. So I was the guy that made all the stuff that people absolutely hated, and I tried to do my best to making it. My goal was like I just wanted to make commercials that people didn't hate, that they would at least tolerate, and so I started there. But since then, I've been able to get my own radio show where I interview regional recording artists and West Virginia recording artists or folks that tour through the area, and we get to have a conversation about what it means to be creative in the 21st century. And if you're from Appalachia, like what does it mean to try to bloom here where you grow? And since then, that was also another reason why my music was able to take off, because I was having a weekly conversation with a different recording artist about what it think I did to get ideas on things I could try, because people would just tell me what they were doing. I would be like, "Hey, so this thing that you're doing that I think is interesting, what exactly are you doing?" And they would tell me on the interview their whole plan, and so I could either try that or not try that. But in that, I didn't just do it for me. The way I felt about it is trying to get the creative scene going again in West Virginia after it was completely shut down. Here was a resource that any musician could listen to, where we were all sharing our ideas. Because I was making it, I just happened to be hyper focused on it. So I got to talk to folks like Charles Wesley Godwin, whose career skyrocketed in the country music scene, about the importance of hiring the right team. I got to
Yeah,
talk to like Kathy Mattea, who hosts Mountain Stage, about her early days and being her early days and trying to get the word out there in ways that she was trying to be seen. I got to talk to my neighbor Al Anderson, who maybe you guys don't know, but he recorded with Billy Ward and the Dominoes back in the '60s and went out to California. Was on Hit Records with them, and I got to talk to him about being in Washington D.C. on the mall when Martin Luther King gave his "I Had a Dream" speech, and then what it was like being a performer on stage the day they found out Martin Luther King died, and hearing his background. And I got to talk to so many either up and coming artists or artists that had some success, but we were all kind of in that same boat of trying to get things going. And so along with growing my music career, and I've been interviewing artists for the last 5 years, and managers and authors and promoters, and trying to study what it takes and what everybody's putting into the music. So that's called Sounds Good to Me. And one of the coolest things about that whole process was getting pitching the show, because I'd tried to get a show. I'd worked at this radio station for like 5 or 6 years, and I tried to get a show going, and they were just like, "Well, we don't know," blah 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 blah, and blowing me off. And so finally, I had made a show, and this was at towards the end of like before music was open again, and I made a pilot for a show, and I was like, "Well, screw this! I'm going to give this thing a name that they just can't turn down." And what's the name that you can't turn down? When you say something sounds good to me, it's hard to say no. So I pitched them a show, and so I did this, but like that was really fun because, like I say, making it every week is it's some like as my career has grown in other ways. Sometimes it becomes like finding time to do it becomes a little bit more challenging, but I always get a lot out of it every time I'm able to sit down and just kind of like this, have a jam session, artist to artist, and listen to what people are going through. And that helped me to understand too what we needed. And I say we need to build the scene that we want. I took it from Gandhi, and I just made it smaller. Gandhi says, be the change that you want to see in the world. And Michael Jackson, if you want to make the world a better place, then look at yourself and make a change. For me, I just say it locally on what I know I can do. That's just one step beyond myself. Was I can be part of building a scene that I want to be part of. I can be that part of the scene that I wanted to be a part of. I could uplift other artists and create opportunities. And I came up with a philosophy of just put love into the world. Eventually you might actually just run into some of your own love along the way.
Yeah,
And so that was my perspective. I was like, I'm going to do things that create opportunities for other people, and along the way maybe that'll create more opportunities for me. So through not so when I quit talking, once I learned to be myself, I got to quit talking about myself so much. I just got to be. And so then I got to start talking to people, and it became when I started sharing their stories through my eyes and what I saw beautiful about the other people around me. And I got to share that perspective of how I learned how to appreciate what made us different. That started to give the vocabulary to listeners and other artists that we had conversation with, and organizations and nonprofits to let their guard down and start to tell their story. At least, now, I can't say I took all the credit for it, but it became a cascading event where all of a sudden you could see more and more creative folks coming out, just raw and engaged and connected. And I mean, people that you would see comedians partnering up with musicians, and you would see professional wrestling groups partnering up with theatrical groups, and you see literary folks partnering up with just whoever you could get in there to create more of a cohesive creative art scene in this rural community that could even go town to town, not just within each small individual scene. Now, the West Virginia scene has media. We have media outlets like Born and Bred, who we've worked with before, who covers, on a literary aspect, covers the music scene and promotes artists. There's my radio show. You're doing a radio show. Corduroy Brown just got onto a radio show where we're using our media chops, our
yeah,
secondary media chops, to hype the homies.
yeah,
And when you hype the homies, you know what I mean? Like, then you're talking about something, you're excited about it. That opens up the world to the listeners and creates vocabulary and portals for new listeners to come in. So by creating the scene and being part of the scene that I wanted to be or creating a scene that I want to be a part of, and helping others to see that route, now we have something that we've never really had in Central Appalachia and West Virginia. Even though it's still rural, we have platforms that we can get beyond just word of mouth. And so my radio show is just a part of it now, versus like when it first came out. My whole reasoning about it, I go to the management and the radio station and go, look, I'm a musician, I need shows. This is the only place I know that has shows.
yeah.
I I
Hey,
gotta
hey,
I need a fix, man.
so sometimes it gotta be like it. There's a question in the chat that they ask: have you ever played a show with the heavy hitters? Uh,
Yes.
that's
Long answer,
that's
yes. I can
that's
tell you
how
about
we.
my favorite show with the heavy hitters. How about
Oh
that?
yeah, that's a great one. That's a great one.
All right, my favorite show with the heavy hitters, that we just did, kind of like really wild, was at the Foundry Theater. You
Yeah,
guys have set up a show, a Black History Month show, and we came in there, and the sound wasn't great, like the space wasn't great, but the fact that we had, it was shortly, I mean, honestly, it was like the only Black History Month concert that was kind of going on in Huntington, and you guys had organized it and brought us out, and then we were playing in the city hall of Huntington, West Virginia, which where I grew up. So all of a sudden, I'm playing a show in the city of my hometown, and that was when it started to connect with me, that we have the ability to do things beyond. Here we are with this show. Nobody else was putting on Black program. At that time, it was like such a small thing to them, because I'm sure you just rented it out and said, let's do it. but it was
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it was a show where Lady D, who is West Virginia's first lady of soul, she had come or sent her videographer there to ask me some questions, and then she took that video from that concert, and then she put it in her documentary series, Those Who Came Before, which then a lot of folks from Mid Atlantic Arts, because that's who gave her the grant. A lot of folks, while she went around and touring with that, she was out telling people about me, hyping the homie through her movie. So people
yeah,
were discovering about me that never seen me. Then Mid Atlantic Arts finds out about me, and then they start. That's how I end up getting the Black Appalachian Storyteller Fellowship, is through applying through them. Which so that show that you guys put on, and we got to perform, and you played with us, and it was fun. That was like a cascading event. That was like a canon event for me, um, in my life that helped to lead me to here. Like, because of all that stuff wouldn't have happened. And like looking back, like I say, I just remembered the way I felt. I had written that in my grant when I wrote up about um when I wrote about to try to get the grant, and I wrote about why and why things mean to me. I used that moment of like that how I felt whelmed standing on that stage in my town city hall, playing Appalachian soul music as the Appalachian soul man, and that was kind of like the initial feeling of being accepted. So that was my favorite show with the heavy hitters. So man, that's how much you've impacted my life. In addition to playing with me and being a good friend, and I always try to help them. I try, and then there was another one where we played in Huntington at the was it Black Sheep Burrito back there in the back, and my
yeah,
granddad
yeah.
got to go to that one, and that was really awesome because he was there. That was probably one. That was the one show where he got to see like the band play it, and he got to see the heavy hitters. He goes, "Oh, those guys, man, I like those guys too."
I gotta tell you a funny story about your dad, man. Cause he's still out here in Huntington.
Yep.
So when I first came to Marshall, I had a little issue with like time management, and he was working in the bursar's office,
Yep.
right? So I'm going to the bursar's office. I'm supposed to do something to get my schedule fixed or changed around or something like that, and there's only one window left, and there's there's this guy that's sitting in the window, and then there's this girl that's in front of me, and then I'm behind her. And she goes up and talks to this guy, and then she turns around and she's in tears. And I'm like, oh man, please don't let me get to that guy. I don't know what has happened. Please don't let me get over there. So he's the only person left. I walk over there. He's like, all right, you got this, you got this, you got this, you got this, you got this. Hmm. Finally, I get to see somebody actually come up to my window and not waste my time. And I like, so I'm rolling. Um, I was like, so is that why she was crying? It's like, yeah, she forgot to get A, B, and C, and I had to send her
Mhm.
away, and it's the last day, so now she's got to run around and try to get it done, and this, that, and the other. And he really taught me a lesson at that moment to always come correct.
Yeah.
And don't waste nobody's time. And then years later, I find out that that's your dad. I was like, man,
Hey, the bursar's office is rough too because that's where all the payments come through. So you can't take classes if you don't get that settled.
yeah, if you
He
don't
knew
get it
that too.
settled,
He would really try, like, and that's what I love about my mom and dad and growing up in West Virginia. That aspect of being Appalachian and helping folks and building community and learning how to like get things done. And he always taught me to he's like, man, you don't get a lot of second chances to make impressions on people. So you want to make sure you're giving the best and brightest impression you got when you're ready, go and do it. And he said, don't go until you're ready, but when you do, go. Don't halfway do it. And I think that's part of why I perform how I do. That's part, because of course a lot of about how to perform I learned from my grandfather, but like that work ethic that you get instilled on a daily basis from um, watching my parents grow up, and my dad, I don't think he ever really made too much until he started working for Marshall. He was a salesperson, and he would have to drive into like he would sell supplies for a coal mining supply company. So he would have to drive into rural, very, very rural West Virginia and sell coal into these coal mine supplies where nobody looked like him, where people would tell him, don't go up that holler because that's that's the head of the KKK up there. It literally has a story about that where he had to try to sell insurance to the Grand Wizard of the KKK. And he tells me the story. I'm like, well, what did you do? And he was like, I told him when they expired and I tried to upgrade his policy. And I'm just like, he was doing his job, but just for us to survive, he did that kind of stuff. So that work ethic and that commitment to your family, that's something that like my grandfather had, my great grandfather had, and even my father had in his own way. So when he was working at Marshall, he would really try to go above and beyond to let the students know, because like ultimately he didn't graduate from college until he went back to school at Marshall. And whenever I went to school the first time, I didn't graduate. And so that was one of those things that hung on my neck. And I think he also understood that. And he really, really pushed me to graduate. And so to go back, so I went back, got my degree, and it wasn't until he had got a job later on in his life that he went back and graduated. And that's when he started working in the bursar's office. And he was trying to kind of tell you from a personal level, hey, be ready to get this done when you start. Don't waste
Oh yeah,
anybody's time, you know?
I always went to him. It was easy. Once you had everything else done, he was like, "All right, cool, let's go.
Yep.
Go ahead, do what you gotta do." And that was
That's
from that moment on. I was
and Four Bills, your bass player, Alex Four Bills. So my mom knew him from the cafeteria. My dad worked in the financial aid office, and my mom worked in the cafeteria. So like all of these students at Marshall were either going to my parents for money or food. So I'm like, what are you talking about, man? You probably got more money and food than I got growing up. Come on.
Yeah, that's so true. So Big Jack said he had a video to play. Big Jack, I'm gonna bring you on so you can pull it up. Okay.
You didn't have to bring me on. I was just going to play it. I'm sitting here looking at this, so I'm trying to fascinate. So let me see if I share it and don't mess it up. So give me a second here.
Well, it's always good to see you, man. You trying to stay way behind the cameras today.
All right, 100%. Yeah, I don't want to take too much. All right, so you know what this one is?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You're so sage.
All right, so I'm gonna drop this one for y'all, and we're gonna rock it out. Here we go.
Down at the end of the road in Osage, there is this little shoe repair shop. And if you can find the time to stop in, we'll go out and listen, we'll find time to talk. He'll tell you how he fixed all the souls, worn down as time marched along, and how he loves watching the people dance in his shoes while he's on stage singing his songs. 'Cause you can learn the most by listening to those who have made the most of time. And that's just one of those lessons that most of us learn a little too late in life. He told me how the town started from nothing, just a bunch of poor folks who built tougher than the time. And then the first lady came and took some good folks away, and some were trapped under the number 3 mile. Oh, 'cause you can learn the most from the mistakes of those who had the future stolen by time. And that's just one of those lessons that most of us learn a little too late in life. It's the history that wasn't written down. They pass it on to us. These are our stories now. They died in them hills and worked on the ground with a living legacy of this forgotten town. So if you're walking down the streets of Osage, you'll hear Al singing at the church next door. He says, I'll fix the souls I can, but I'm just a man. I'll leave the miracles for the Lord. Oh, 'cause you can learn the most by listening to those who have traveled the farthest through time. And that's just one of those lessons that most of us learn a little too late in life. Oh, that's one of those lessons I wish I had learned so much sooner in life.
Wow. Yeah, that's nice. That's nice.
Oh man, like sometimes, like after you put something out, you don't hear it for a while, and we play it all the time. But it's great seeing the video. Each year we do a street fair to honor. It's kind of a homecoming for a lot of the families of the coal miners that maybe they moved away, but they grew up here, and it's great to see folks come back and share. And that video was real fun because we kind of had to get up early before the street fair and shoot the video, and like there was a lot of behind the scenes, like me setting people, like the whole scene. But I had to actually, like, it's weird because sometimes you want to have something happen and you have to like be a good person to do it. And like, so I couldn't fake it. I had to like go to the committee meetings. I had to like um do this whole help planning the street fair because I had this vision for a video in my mind, and it was such a blessing that everybody cooperated in the town, and they were on board with making it all happen. And then when we got it done, I remember playing it for Al and showing him, the older man in the video. I played it for him and showed him the video, and we were sitting in the museum, the local town museum, and man, he was just so proud. And now when people watch it, we get a lot of comments from people all over the world who either spent time in Osage or know Al. And literally, Al's music career, like here locally, has just like taken off again. Like he wasn't getting any gigs or anything, and all he's like out. He had a gig earlier today just down the street. There's a whole music festival that's devoted to like his kind of music, and they came and found him. And he does more gigs than me probably. Like he's so busy now. He had a big reputation. It was just stopped because of the pandemic. So then they saw him in the video, and they just started booking him. And he was doing surprise and like surprise drop-ins. And then finally somebody was like, you need to tell Al to slow down. He's 89 years old. I was like, I will not do that. This man knows what he's doing.
Yeah, that's what's up. Man. It's amazing because I mean, a lot of towns, and again, Pharaoh, I'm not taking over. I'm just I've seen the video back there. So, but a lot of towns don't have their own song. They don't have, the memories that's going in there, and like I say, incorporating real people from the town. You didn't bring in actors and all to act like that. They did. These are real people that can take pride in their song. So that's amazing. So congratulations to you, and even the spark that you gave back to, like you say, Al, and how his music was able to, it was already there, but then you rekindled and hit that flame again. So now it's taking off at 89 years old. That's totally amazing. So
and you saw the group of the folks with the green T-shirts there. We that's our Osage Gospel and Soul Community Choir, and Al and I, we both basically we had an idea one right when I first moved in the area that we wanted to have like a jam session and get some other musicians to come and play with us. Well, we couldn't figure out a day to do it when all the other musicians either weren't resting or weren't gigging. So we're like, well, man, what are we going to do? And I said, well, I'll get this. I like to sing. You like to sing. Let's just see who wants to come sing with us, and we'll sing for fun. So we get together on the last Monday of every month, and it's just choir in the like as a verb. You just get together with a group of people, and we've been teaching them this R&B and doo wop and gospel and soul songs, and they get a kick out of it. We talk about the history of what was going on then, and we're passing the traditions on from those older generations. Like my granddad, who was he'd be about 10 years older than Al. So Al would have watched him sing and then been learning from him. And so then Al tells me stories about my granddad from the perspective of somebody who saw my granddad, not from like the first person perspective. And then I take that material and I try to internalize it, and then we share it with a whole new generation. And so this end of town it was a lot of those immigrant families that mixed and mingled because of they didn't have a lot of money and the work was hard in the coal mines, that created this unique blended sound that was a little bit of the bluegrass, a little bit of the gospel, a little bit of the R&B, doo-wop, and folk, and a lot of the black music from the South and the work songs and the percussion, and it all blended together in melting pots like this area. And folks like Al Anderson would have been around, like he's like a living witness of that. So I kind of get a testimonial about what was going on. That now, as I move forward and create this music for a future generation, like what I mean, that they can touch that past through the experience of something like Streets of Osage, like the song, or they can live through that by coming out to the choir, or they can come out to a show and experience like that sonic experience of the juke joint. And it's all really just highlighting, like, it was my quest to find a place to fit in Appalachia. But since then I've discovered, like, down in North Carolina, down in Tennessee, Western North Carolina in the mountains, down in Tennessee, down in Georgia, Eastern Kentucky, Southwestern Virginia, and then the southern coastal of West Virginia, where there was just a lot more of a black migration, where they stopped. Up here in Morgantown, it was kind of, we are getting a lot of folks from Pittsburgh in the northern, so there's a big kind of a big gap in the coal production. But that same history I was talking about in the lifestyle was very prevalent kind of in that stretch going down in the southern Appalachian Mountains. And so once I learned that, I was like, well, hold on, this is bigger than me. I'm somehow just tapping into something that exists and nobody had words for. And so a lot of those folks are like, yeah, we sing soul too. And so it's not just versions of folk musicians. Black, you don't just have black folk musicians. You have black R&B musicians. You have black soul and funk and rock and hip hop, because being black in Appalachia are not mutually exclusive. You could be both. And so that is kind of where the lane is. And because nobody has told this story, or I don't say nobody's told it, but because, like, sometimes the portal to learn about it can be intellectual, a lot of folks haven't felt that lived experience. And what I try to do is create a way to tell my story and feel a place of purpose and home, and fulfill my passions by giving a lot of people a chance to just kind of enjoy themselves within that space. And then you can tell your friends about it, and they can come the next time, and then we can all make it a thing. And that's why I like doing shows with Jared. And there's also, like I say, Lady D, who's West Virginia's first lady of soul. There's some amazing R&B, and anywhere from new R&B to old school funk to bluegrass and rock artists in Charleston area that are making some great music. There's some folks in the Eastern Panhandle, West Virginia, that are making these great Black American music inspired sounds. Then it's coming out of right here in Central Appalachia, where there's only a 3% Black population. So it's unique in that respect, where it's like it's easy to overlook this, but there's been so many prevalent thought leaders that have come out of West Virginia, like Booker T. Washington, like Carter G. Woodson. So the founder of Black History Month, and the study of Black history was from West Virginia. You have the founder of the Tuskegee Institute was from West Virginia. You have Lewis Henry Gates, or Skip Gates, who's on PBS doing Find My Roots, and is a Harvard professor and met with Barack Obama at the White House, and he's from West Virginia. And those, Bill Withers. You have Johnny John, who wrote "Lean on Me," who they sing in all around the world, and it's on it was in textbooks. You have Johnny Johnson, who played piano with Chuck Berry and was there in the invention of rock and roll, and was the original Johnny B. Good, and he's from Fairmont, West Virginia. So all of a sudden, I have not only like the people that I saw in my general vicinity, I have actual contributors to American culture that were all in my neck of the woods having similar experiences just like me. And because I could identify with that, now I can go along and tell people those stories and be a West Virginia with a pride and sense where I didn't have to adopt somebody else's story. I can live within my own space. And that gave me the space to bloom where I grow. And I hope it opens up doors for other artists to find their way too.
Look, Pharaoh, again, I'm not trying to step in. I'm like, wow, I'm amazed at
I know this I'm talking a lot, man.
No, I'm amazed at everything you said. And look, and it's funny because a lot of people, only when they think of West Virginia, they thinking of Country Roads, a song that's not even from West Virginia or even written from something. It's like, but they think Country Roads take me home to a place I belong, West Virginia, and that's all they think, 100%. But
right.
You're dropping some real knowledge and real, these are real people that have real contributions to a lot of stuff that we're going through that we see now. That it was, years and years and years ago. And so I appreciate that. I really do. I don't want to keep popping in and out of the screen, but I know we have already crossed over the hour mark.
Absolutely.
I know.
I will keep on going all night. So I understand you know when to push the brakes. I'm sure people are like, okay, that's a lot. Just go to AristotleJones.com, and there's a lot of links to history. And the upcoming projects that'll come out, you'll get a big dose of ways that you can find out more about all of these amazing artists that I'm learning from. And like I said, it's not just the past; it's the present, in the future that we're really looking towards. And by celebrating those individuals within not only my art form, but in the way that we carry ourselves as Appalachians and West Virginians and as Black Americans, that'll give us some of the keys that we need to move forward, just like Pharaoh keys right there, man.
Yeah. Look, so we do have your website in the chat. So anybody that's out there that's watching, and people that's going to watch this show on the replay, definitely make sure to go to AristotleJones.com so you can learn more about him. I got my man Pharaoh Keys, the host of the We Be Jammin live show, and he did a wonderful job today. I got to do this, and I'm not taking over, but we're going to end this show. I want to say thank you to everybody who has been watching and hanging out with us in the chat today from YouTube, Facebook, Twitch. And we're going to be making cuts and putting this in Instagram. I already said I don't do TikTok anymore, but anybody that does TikTok, you can go ahead and send those clicks over there to them. But regardless of all of that, we thank you, Aristotle Jones, for being a guest on the Iron Sharpening Iron Universe and the We Be Jammin live show. Pharaoh Keys, we can't go without the what they call it, the house band playing at least a song. So the house band got to play a song. So we got to let them roll out, because the house band for this is the heavy hitters. So the heavy hitters is the house band.
Much respect.
So we got to give them their one couple of minute clip of their song. And then Pharaoh Keys is going to hit that end button. And but Aristotle, we're going to ask you to hang over. Don't leave, please, once we close it out.
I got to hear the heavy hitters sing their song, man.
We're going to hit the heavy hitters, hit their song. Pharaoh, you're going to hit that end button. And then we'll be talking to you later. Tune in tomorrow because we got the, which one is it? Either the Coach's Corner at 2 o'clock Mountain Time, and then the Iron Sharpening Iron Show, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So tune in tomorrow on the Iron Sharpening Iron Universe. We got 2 wonderful shows and some great guests coming in. I'm already saying they're saying great show out there, and the people are going there. So that's pretty cool. So thank you again, Aristotle. Pharaoh, I'm gonna hit this button and get y'all banned, but you're gonna hit the end button. All right.
All right.
So have fun, man. This is awesome. Thank you.
I'm a little drunk right now, but you would never know it. I'm a little drunk right now, but you would never know it. I'm a little messed up, or whatever you call it. I had your number saved, and I thought, well, shoot, I might as well call it. You're probably still with what's the name? Yeah, sure, of course you are. See, I don't care. I met a fine girl at the bar. Woman you will ever be, I think her name was Rena. Way too much tequila, was it? Or Serena, but anyway, I'm doing good. Great. Oh, by the way, your favorite band is gonna be in town, and I'm the whole day you delay. And I know you gotta take it right up close there to the stage. You hear about cancellation, just a sip your Tanqueray. But you ain't asked who's opening up, but we're headlining is what they say. And now we're here standing face to face, screaming, I'm a little drunk right now. You would never know it. I'm a little drunk right now, but you would never know it. I'm a little drunk right now, you would never know it. I'm a little drunk right now. I'm a little insecure and I hate the bore. You already know it. I'm an undiscovered poet, performer with rockstar motives. Let me tell you something that not many people have ever noticed. But I'm scared of being vulnerable. And I'm scared of commitment, but obviously, yeah, whatever. Who is it? I bet if I called you, you'll be right at my spot in about 5 minutes. And you're going to delete this voicemail, God forbid your man think I'm in it. I'll say this to me when I get up in it, but I'm a little drunk right now. You would never know it. I'm a little drunk right now, but you would never know it. I'm a little drunk right now. Oh, I'm a little drunk right now. I know you're doing your best to